Don't even. He was there, and he was wearing your jacket, Barry.
Where'd he go? Did the crabs carry him away?
I swear to God. I believe you, Julie. He took the body. He came in, he took the body.
Why would he do that?
I don't know, Barry. Okay, why would he try to run you over? Why did he make coleslaw on Helen's head?
Come on, Julie, let's go back to the house.
Where's your jacket, Barry? Look, don't you see? He's got us now. Okay, this is exactly what he wants. We can't go to the police, not now. He's made sure of that. He's just out there and he's watching us and waiting. What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
So it is October, and in October, if you're new, we always do. Well, if you're listening to this episode, then you probably surmise that in October we like to do spooky movies. And yeah, this is a podcast where we talk about movies that have been adapted from books. Maybe you didn't know that I Know What You Did Last Summer was adapted from a book. It was, and we're going to get into it. But because we try to do a brand new episode every single week, we also can't do like a full, huge novel every week. And so we are really talking about any movie, as long as people can get their eyeballs on it, it's streaming somewhere, any movie that is adapted from any kind of literary source. So not just books, but also magazine articles, plays, songs, poems, like we did The Raven last year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mulan.
And Mulan is also an epic poem. So if you have suggestions for books and movies, we've got the holiday season coming up and we kind of don't have any ideas because we're coming up on 10 years of doing this. And I really feel like we've done all the holiday movies. So if there are some that you think we could do, maybe it's again based on A Christmas Carol that we don't know about, please give us those suggestions. And you can also meet other listeners of this podcast and actually see our full list of books and movies that we've done. One of our amazing listeners, Thaddeus, put together a comprehensive list of our episodes. So you can see like what we've done and what we haven't done and make your suggestions. And we would just love to have you as our guest on the internet.
We do have a basic Facebook page. If you be sure to like it, the episodes are posted there when we first publish, but we're much more interactive in our Facebook group. So you just type in Book VS Movie Podcast Group and ask to join. And we just talk about books and movies there and ideas. Like Margot says, like we covered Last Christmas last year based on the George Michael song. Anyway, we're also on Twitter, as long as that's the thing, and Instagram and Threads at Book versus a Movie. In those cases, you spell it all out. And then we have an old-timey email. It's Book versus Movie Podcast, spelled it all out, at gmail.com. And also, please make sure that the book and the movie are easy for us to get our hands on. If we have to buy a physical copy of the movie, it's just not going to work. It's got to be on a streaming app. Thank you.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Patreon. We've been doing the show now. It's going to be going on 10 years. So we've decided to do what we have available in the free fee, the basic fee that you're listening to now, 2 years worth of shows. And then we have a bunch of holiday episodes. Then after the 2 years is up, we're starting to post them on the Patreon page. In the last few months, we put up Stepford Wives, Psycho, The Silence of the Lambs, Turn of the Screw, Little Women, His Girl Friday, Harold and Maude. All these really great movies and books that we have are up there on the Patreon page. Thank you all for supporting us there. If money is tight, though, what we ask is if you could just please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or just be sure to subscribe, or just tell a friend about the show, or even just ask for a sticker, put that on your laptop and go to the coffee shop and look really cool. Anyway, thank you all.
Marco, I have a question before we begin. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
Jennifer Love Hewitt in her 90s crop top saying, "What are you waiting for?" And she even says in the notes, she says, like, I'm not sure why she says that. Like, it's like, because it makes for a great ad. Like, you just put that in the trailer.
It's a trailer moment.
It's a trailer moment. Yeah, we're talking about Lois Duncan's I Know What You Did Last Summer today.
So, yeah, this book, I'd never seen this movie. I've never seen this
Me
movie
neither.
or read this book. It came out, I think I was already married. I had just gotten married. So
97?
I'm not going to go see a teen summer
No.
movie. No. So I'd never seen it before. Although I knew, it was it was a cultural, such a 90s thing that I knew what it was about. And there's certainly been many, many, many parodies. I was just watching before we got on the air, it's very dark humor, but the Scary Movie parody of
yes.
that moment is so hilarious. That actress, she spins around like 6 times.
What are you waiting? What for?
But I had never, ever read this book. And the book has been around since the 70s. And we're going to talk about, sometimes she's called Lois Carey.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she's called Lois Duncan. I think Lois Duncan is her real name, and Lois Carey is a pen name. And writing, kind of YA horror, I think we can say. I'm a little bit familiar with her work, but not that much. As I said, I'd have never read this book before. Now, unfortunately, and so I feel a little bit as though it's an unfair thing that you and I could only get our hands on the quote unquote updated version of this book, that they kind of revamped it to bring it into the 21st century after the movie's success. And I really wish I could have read the 70s version.
Yeah, sometimes we're able to get, quite often, by the way, we're able to get like a cheap
Very
paperback.
frequently.
Yeah, and we'll get them because we like to support the local shops or the thrift stores that sell them. So we're totally okay with that. And I like to look at the original source, even if it has some hokey expressions or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. It's just the story. So should we talk about Lois Duncan a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about her.
So Lois Duncan Steinmetz, she was born Philadelphia, PA in 1934. Her parents are both professional photographers. Lois, you could see pictures of her. Her family moves to Florida at some point, and her parents used to photograph the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus quite a bit. And she was on the cover of Collier's magazine, which is a big magazine for the time. Very pretty.
Yeah, used her as a model a lot. She's very cute. Young. It's very kind of fresh-faced.
Grace Kelly.
Definitely that kind of Grace Kelly energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was known as Lois Carey when she was writing. She sold her first story when she was still in high school. She goes to college. She gets married, drops out of college, but she continually writes. And she covered, there's Hotel for Dogs, which was the first one, which we were going to put on our list because that was a movie that just came out not too long ago, I think. Killing Mr. Griffith, I know, was a movie that was covered all of this time. And I Know What You Did Last Summer, also Summer of Fear. Unlike Margot, so I do like my horror books and stuff. I also was really just into supernatural horror when I was a kid, not so much the knifey, slashy stuff. I liked possessions and, the twin sister that nobody knew about that was raised in a shack and then comes back, while you're in college, trying to pledge to a dorm or whatever. Some of her... Killing Mr. Griffith, Strangers with My Face. I remember that when I was a kid. And she just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. She has the Grand Master Award from the Mystery Writers of America. And as Margot said, she just sold very well throughout the 70s and then the 80s. This movie comes out in 97. Her daughter, Caitlin, was murdered in 1989. And it's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And unfortunately, she didn't know what happened to her daughter. She had wrote a book called Who Killed My Daughter? And it was about the investigation because the police were just saying well, it's just a random thing and didn't really investigate it. So she had to get her powers into that to get it going. A man has confessed and then he recanted his confession, but he's on trial right now. But Lois in 97, when she saw this movie, she had sold the rights years and years before and forgot about it. And they had made a couple of movies, but they were like TV movies and I love 70s and 80s horror TV movies because they're not too gory.
They're so tame.
They're so tame, but it's exciting enough. You're a kid like I was and you have like Slumber Party or something. It's just like perfect for that. So she goes to see this movie and it's a slash 'em up, and because it came out, it's the Kevin Williamson person, but it also, this is a year after Scream, and Scream changed everything. Horror movies had been jettisoned to the wayside for many years.
Quite a while. Like we had the whole, like when you and I were in our teens, like we had the whole Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right. It became sort of like corny and passe. They formulaic.
They didn't put money into them.
No, and young people were sort of like, I don't want to watch that corny crap, anymore. And so, yeah, you're right. When Scream happened, because didn't they have Drew Barrymore?
Oh yeah, it's Wes Craven, and
yeah,
it had huge stars. Spoiler for Scream, they kill off Drew Barrymore in the first 10 minutes, much like in Psycho when Janet Leigh is killed. It's the same thing. Like you watch this movie and it's cute little young Drew Barrymore and you don't expect it, and it became this huge hit. So then he went back to the script he wrote in the first place, and there's also a Joan Crawford movie about, I think it's from the 60s, where she has two daughters that are crank calling people. And it's like, I know who you are and I know what you did.
Yes.
Something like that. So this is like the story is not that super original. I mean, there are stories out there about people who innocently kill someone or innocently harm a person, but they don't want to take responsibility for it. So they take off, and then there's vengeance. So this is that kind of story, and it's the same.
Yes.
You have your hot actors and everything like that. So it made a lot of money, and I think she went back to her material. She was offended by the fact that they made it so slashery because of what being the original parent of a murdered child. Yeah.
Yes, and we'll talk about in a second. We'll get to the differences because there are some major differences between the book and the movie. The book is not nearly so slashy as. In fact, it's not slashy at all. The only murderers are the teenagers who hit the person with the car, and we'll talk about that. But as opposed to now, again, as Margos said, this is after Scream, and Scream was like slash jump scare slash, and so so they take that source material and add the Scream, slasher element into that story and twists and turns of the plot and. The killer is this person. No, it's actually that person, and all the twists of that. But the book is not like that. The book is pretty straightforward. But let's talk about this book. It's 1973.
Well, let me say also, so after this happens and she realizes Killing Mr. Griffith is going to come out, there's another movie, and then
yes.
She gives interview, because if you saw the version I had in my Kindle, they have an interview with her. And she, after these movies came out, she decided to go back to her source material and update them all. Because in the 73 version, the character, the lead, Julie James, wears a jumpsuit, which nobody wears a jumpsuit anymore. And just little things like the text.
Can I just say we did in the 90s?
Yeah,
they came back in the 90s.
And I don't think it needs it. You don't need to add social media to the mix. You don't need to add cell phones, because if you just tell me this is 1973 when it's taking place, I understand. There's not going to be a flip phone involved. Like, nobody's going on AOL to look something up. I mean,
and also like we're just inviting plot holes.
It's just inviting the plot holes that are already there, but you can kind of like I said, these books were created for a kid like me that was a bookworm, but like that thrill of scary stuff, but not too scary, that kind of thing. And the paperback section at the library was where I hung out. Like I just would grab a stack of them. So the story is 1973. It's a thriller. It's about four kids that are in a car and they're driving, and they're excited and partying and having a great time. And in our version, by the way, she also says they're smoking weed when they're driving. And I'm not sure if that's what happened originally, but they run over a kid by accident who's on his bike.
Yeah, and the big difference, number one, in the book, it is a child that they murdered.
A kid.
Yeah. And he is definitely dead.
He's dead, deader than a doornail. And so they realize, like, oh man, what's going to happen? And yeah.
And I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so it is a similar situation to the movie in that they're all of these teenagers. It's two couples who are in the car, and And all of them are like just finishing high school and about to go to college. Right. So that's that very kind of important transitional point in your life. Like they've got their whole lives ahead of them and they've done this awful thing accidentally.
Yeah, it's a complete total accident, but they're all thinking about the consequences. Like, what if we are arrested? What if we go to trial? And they're freaked out. So they basically kind of pull the child over to the side. They call anonymously. They call for an ambulance, and then they decide, okay, if none of us ever says anything, nobody will ever find out. And basically there was some paint from the bike that was on the car, so they repainted the car. And then one kid goes to the West Coast. She goes to school in New York, his girlfriend. One girl's really wealthy. She doesn't go to college. She's just on TV, on TV, which that would be my dream life. She's like sunbathing and on TV and just like not working very hard. And then the other guy was like the football star. And he's like going to college. So they kind of go off in their own ways. And then they meet up a year later. And the girl comes back home. And that's our lead, Julie. And her mother is like, Julie, you're so pale and you used to be so pretty. And Julie's just struggling because she's got PTSD from this experience.
Yes. And
she didn't tell her mother, by the way. So
no, none of them have told they haven't told anybody. But again, a big, big difference is they do call an ambulance.
Yes.
On the off chance he may still be alive.
Right. The least you could do, really.
It is literally the least you could do, especially in a day of mobile phones. We have the technology, but in 1973, like that means you're walking to a payphone or whatever. So,
but it's not going to be like easy for people to pick you up. Like they didn't just like trace every call back then. So you could just leave a call and hang up, and then
absolutely,
yeah,
I'm sure that happened. And so big difference number one, it's a child. Big difference number two, they do call an ambulance. Big difference number three is Julie, our main character. In the movie, we see Julie, and after this trauma, like she's really struggling. She's kind of in free fall. She's not doing well in her classes. She's having a rough time, and her mom doesn't really know why. In the book, she's also struggling, and she's her mom is like, you're pale. So it's a lot of the same things, but it's because she's only doing her schoolwork. Like she's like hyper focused on her schoolwork and not her life at all. She's completely avoiding her life by throwing herself into her schoolwork. So it's a little bit different kind of a way of dealing with what happened. They all have different, the way the kids in the book deal with this is so different than the way they deal with it in the movie. They actually have the sense of like, we are not doctors. We can't tell if this child is alive or not. Let's call an ambulance. As opposed to the movie ones who are like, yeah, we know biology. Sure.
Right.
Clearly.
Right.
Let's dispose of this body. Okay. But so anyway, and they know because it's a news story, as it would be, especially in a small town. They know that it's the name of the child. They know who the family is. Like they know a lot more that they're living with. And we learn in so Julie is basically like she's getting ready to, as we say, getting ready to go to college. And her mom's like, I hope you, like, part of college is having fun and like making friends and stuff like that. And I hope you're not going to, just be focused on your schoolwork, and trying to get her to see, that there's more life out there. But of course the mom has no idea what's going on. And Julie gets this note in the mail that says, I know what you did last summer. And she immediately freezes, and she goes and goes to the other three, because they've all kind of parted ways. They've all like, we don't know each other anymore after this. But she goes to each of them, and I can't remember do they all get a letter? I don't remember anymore.
I think they do. I mean, so Barry is the football star, right? And Ray or Roy? Ray's the boyfriend.
and he's moved to the West Coast.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to
Right?
school. He was kind of just
No.
drifting around, which a lot of people did in the 70s.
Yeah, that wasn't an unusual
That's
thing.
not unusual. Like he's just going to find himself in a VW bus for a couple of years. Like it's whatever. But he comes back so that she gets this note and then she reconnects with all of them to find out if they've also gotten a note. And they're eventually finding out from one another that, so Helen is the beauty queen. She lives in this apartment complex and she's on TV and she stays at the nice apartment complex where there's all these school teachers and there's this one handsome guy that shows up and flirts with her, but she's still dating Barry. But they're still together, but they hate each other. Like they need to break up.
Yeah,
There's clearly
it's not a good relationship.
No, they're just they're trauma bonded, basically, is what we would say now.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Julie. So a year goes by. I'm sorry, a year goes by between this hit and run and when we pick up with them and they get the letters. And Julie and Ray. So Ray has gone to the West Coast, so they are no longer together. And Julie has a new boyfriend whose name I have forgotten. Buddy
Collingsworth or Collie. It's like it's Bud and Collie. He also, in the book we have, he served in Iraq, and then he's just come home right after his brother. But he doesn't know. We don't know his full deal, but he's just come home from Iraq and he has a bit of PTSD. He's got a bit of like adjusting to life back. In the original story, it was Vietnam that he came back from, but they're starting to date each other. And her mom is actually like, okay, good. She's starting to get out of the house and have fun and that kind of thing. Helen is being threatened. So Helen does get is being threatened as well. But she's at her job, but she flirts with this guy at the apartment complex. And it's like, you even said to me, you texted me at one point, like you were in the chapter 3 or 4. You're like, oh, I know who did it. I know who this is.
I instantly knew.
It's not shocking, but there's this handsome guy that hits on Helen. And then he says to Helen, I got to go because I got a date tonight. And she goes, oh, well, I'm hurt. You have a date. And then he comes back to her apartment all like stalky and very controlling. And he's saying to her, you know, do you just tease men or do you just lead men on? And I don't know. But it's very, his behavior is odd. We also have Barry. Barry's like playing football and then he's at some party and somebody says, oh, you need to go to the football field to do something. But he goes to the football field and he meets somebody and then he gets shot and he's shot through his body, like the bullet is stuck in his spine or something. So he's in the hospital and then he thinks he could be paralyzed. Like his football career is done, but would he even be allowed to? And his parents, his dad all of a sudden is like, well, he's paralyzed. He's going to have to figure out how to live on his own now. Right, Mom?
Basically,
quickly is like pushed it.
Like pretty much right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
like scolding the mother for being upset. Like,
yeah, I'll tell you when I figured it out. Yeah, chapter 3, I figured it out. This is when I figured it out. They're recounting, so they've all gotten a letter or something. They've all heard something. Like that's the thing. Barry. I don't remember he got a letter, but he's the person who's threatening them says like, meet me by yourself in the middle of a football field at night. And he's like, okay, and there he goes, like thinking like he's going to handle it somehow. But anyway, Julie is they're all going like, well, we haven't told anybody and da 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 and Julie said, yeah, and we called an ambulance and she says,
oh right, okay.
She says, I sent yellow roses to the funeral
without a note,
so nobody could possibly trace it. But like, okay. So if we're here, okay, that's what I mean about inviting plot holes.
By the way, these are dumb kids. Let's just say they're dumb teenagers.
Real dumb kids.
Yeah.
Let's say, in that way, it's realistic. Let's say that it is it's 2010 or whatever. Let's say it is that. If you're not quote unquote anonymously ordering flowers, how are you doing that? Are you doing it on the internet? Because then it can be traced. Are you doing it on your cell phone? Because then it can be traced. unless you're telling me how you did it in such a way that it cannot be traced, it can be traced. But I know that as I'm reading this, I know this book was written in 1973, which means if she had to order flowers for the funeral, she had to do what?
Go to the flower shop.
A flower shop.
And say, I'd like a dozen yellow roses sent to this funeral home. But please don't put my name on the card.
Yeah.
And there's it's a small town. It's not like there's
town.
A flower shop on every corner. I mean, there's only going to be a few places that you go.
And I think I would remember if I was working in a flower shop, some teenager coming in and anonymously sending yellow roses to a child's funeral and not wanting their name put. I think I would remember that.
Also, this is like in the papers.
With the child's family.
Yeah, it was in the papers. Like everyone knows this kid was struck by, was hit and run and was killed and nobody knows who did it. So, yeah. They act like teenagers. Let's just be clear. Like they're not super clever, but
so it's clearly a family member, somebody close to this child. And so by then I'm like, okay, well, whoever it was, they found out by the florist. Well, there's this calling guy, and then there's the buddy guy. And now that I think about it, they're never in the same place at the same time. And anyway, so spoiler alert, we spoil everything on this show, by the way. If you've never seen this movie or read this book, sorry, we're going to spoil it. So it's the same guy. It's the same guy. Now, this is very different than in the movie. If you've seen the movie, then and bearing in mind that this is a juvenile piece of fiction. I don't mean juvenile like immature. I mean it's written for juveniles. For it's young adult, and so it's not going to be Agatha Christie, but but the whole thing about the story is what if these teenagers are involved in this hit and run. It's not just about like what if they're involved in this hit and run and they get away with murder. It's what if they're involved in this hit and run and somebody connected to the victim insinuates themselves into each of their lives without the four of them knowing about it. Not without them putting it together that it's the same person that's getting revenge on them. And that's what's interesting about the book is that this guy who at first seems very charming in the apartment complex with Helen and is also the guy that Julie is dating, is also the guy that shoots Barry on the football field. Because I think Barry sees the guy, but doesn't know who he is, has never seen him before, right? So so he can identify him, but just nobody thinks to ask him to show him photos of anybody. So this guy is wreaking havoc all over the place. And at one point, the girls, and this is similar to the movie, at one point the girls don't they go to the kids' family's home? It's not anything like in the movie, but I feel like they go.
Yeah, it is David, younger brother David.
Yeah, yes. Julie goes, and so Daniel has a sister and a brother. And Julie goes and talks to Daniel's sister, whose name is
Missy?
Megan.
Or Megan.
And she kind of gives Julie the lowdown about like the impact that this had on the family. But it's a little bit different. It basically like, she learns about the family. So it's all the same guy.
It's the same guy. Yeah. Helen.
All the same guy.
Helen. So she annoys this guy gets jealous of her. And then at one point she's in her apartment and there's somebody like sneaking into her apartment, like taking, and that actually, I remember reading this when I was young and being really kind of scared because he's getting the hinges off the door and he's coming to get her, but she jumps out of a window. It is scary. And she jumps out of a window. I mean, they all kind of get away. And then at the end, Julie is about to go on a date with this guy. And then we find, and it switches, the perspective switches from each person. So at one point we get Julie's mother, and Julie's mother says, when I have a bad feeling about something, these are the things that have happened. And she boom, boom, boom can say with absolute accuracy, I had a bad feeling that day and this happened. So she says to Julie, you need to stay home. I have a bad feeling about this date tonight. And so she says to her date, who's Collie for Collingsworth, he says, "Oh, I'll just walk you. Can you just walk me to my car? I just want to talk to you for a second." And then he walks her to his car, and that's when he tells her, my younger brother called me Collie because he couldn't say Collingsworth. And he basically says, "That's me. That was my brother you killed. And I'm getting my revenge on all of you."
Boys swoop in, right?
Yeah.
Ray and...
I think he knocks him out. I think Ray just knocks him out. And then Julie's mother calls the cops. And then they send the cops over. And that's when they realize we have to say everything. We have to just fess up to everything, which we should have done in the first place.
So... Again, last big difference between the book and the movie. At the end of the book, the teenagers confess to what happened. First of all, they're all alive, and they confess to what happened. They finally face the music for what they did. The brother goes to jail, presumably, for trying to kill all those people. So, so that's the book. As I said, it's pretty. It's fine. It's a little too easy to figure out for my taste. I feel like even as a kid, I would have figured it out real quickly. But as an idea, I think the idea of having older brother of this child seeking revenge by insinuating himself into each of their lives as a different person is very interesting and not at all in the movie.
No, I think... If you're like 11, 12 years old, it's a great fun read. It's and it's got the decent message, go to the cops.
Yeah, if they had just done that in the first place, and we also learn when Julie goes to talk to the boy's sister, we also learn that their mother had like a total breakdown in like an assisted living situation somewhere. And, because she never had any closure and never knew what happened really. And so yes, if these teenagers had just been forthcoming in the first place about it, an accident, it's terrible, but everybody could have gotten therapy a lot sooner. Like a lot less damage could have happened. I mean, could have been saved. A lot of unnecessary damage could have been averted. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was horrible already. So it didn't have to be as horrible as it was. So anyway, but yeah, I think it's just scary enough for the age range that we're hitting here. I feel like. It's not, there's no blood, there's no knives, there's no, apart from the actual accident itself, like that's the only, Barry does get shot, but there is that. But he lives and he's going to
walk and he's okay.
He's okay. So yeah, it's good. And I can see why somebody would option it right away.
Absolutely. It's a great story. As we said, when the Scream movie made all the difference in the world, and I think it was these horror films that made a lot of money, but like they only put like 15 million into this, and it came back with like 100 million was the box office. Plus, they also used to sell CDs for the soundtrack, and those used to sell like crazy for these movies. That was another thing. Should we play the trailer and then we'll get into this movie?
So the boy and girl are making out, right? When they hear over the radio that this lunatic killer's escaped from an insane asylum.
That's not the way it goes. The boy goes for help, and the girl stays in the car, and she hears this, like, scratching sound.
No, he's been decapitated.
No, he was gutted with a hook.
Barry!
What's wrong with you? Watch out!
Oh my God.
You think he's dead?
We can't just leave him here.
Oh, tell me, little Miss Prelaw, what's the charge for manslaughter? We make a pact. Right here and now we take this to our grave.
For the last year, 4 friends have kept a secret.
Are you on drugs?
No.
Well, then what is wrong? I've had a rough year.
But not all secrets stay buried.
Somebody sent this to me.
Oh my God. Someone knows.
I know what you did last summer. Ooh.
What they thought would be a new beginning
Toast to us.
is becoming a dead end.
Somebody tried to kill you last night. We have to go to the police.
If he wanted me dead, he could have done it.
And the mistake they made.
It was an accident.
There was no accident. It was murder.
What if he's still alive? Hey!
What are you doing here?
Is coming back to haunt them.
Oh my gosh.
He's after me, too.
I got a letter.
I got run over. Helen gets her hair chopped off. Julie gets a body in a trunk, and you get a letter? That's balanced.
He's waiting for us to unravel.
The wait is over.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
I know what you did last summer.
Our director is Jim Gillespie. The screenplay is by Kevin Williamson, and our movie stars, this is so 1990s, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Felipe, Freddie Prinze Jr., Johnny Galecki, and Bridget Wilson, who's Bridget Wilson Sampras now. She married Pete Sampras. It takes place...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yes. Oh, that's right. Okay.
It takes place in North Carolina. I'll say this. The movie looks great. It's beautifully shot.
It is. It is.
It is.
Yeah.
The fashions of this are very 1997.
Are they ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
spaghetti straps and crop tops. And
with
the little
bra
short
strap
shorts.
showing.
Of course, with the bra strap showing. What are you, a tramp?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We have Jennifer Love Hewitt, we used to say, if just to give it context, is like at the time she was on a show called Party of Five, and she was 18 when she made this movie. And she was like a big heartthrob, very beautiful girl. This was like her first big starring role, and apparently they asked her to do some nudity and she refused. So then one of the producers says, that's fine. We'll just have her in tank tops and stuff, which is what they did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we should say our screenwriter, Kevin Williamson, he wrote the screenplay for Scream.
Yes.
He also wrote for, all of the stuff of the day, Dawson's Creek and Vampire Diaries, Scream 2, of course. So it is very that. We'll get to the plot twist a little bit, but yes, it's so 90s. We have Sarah Michelle Gellar, who I knew as Kendall from All My Children, Erica Kane's long lost daughter that she didn't know she had somehow.
And was she wicked?
She was wicked. Yeah. So Erica Kane had her perfect little princess daughter named Bianca. And then at some point, like when Bianca's a teenager, Kendall comes to town and I can't remember if like Erica had given up a baby. I think that must be what had happened, was that Erica Kane had given up a baby for her career. Her career as a supermodel who was only 5 foot nothing. And totally plausible.
I've met her before. She's tiny and very nice. Has a wonderful reputation.
Lovely. Yes. Everybody loves Miss Susan Lucci. And I watched All My Children from a time I was a very small child. When Erica was a model with her glamorous New York apartment. I loved All My Children. So I knew Sarah Michelle Gellar as Kendall on All My Children, and she was super good. Like, soap operas. They gotta churn them out. For those of you who don't know, they were churning these hour-long dramas out every single day. Somehow.
And there's no special effects. There's none. Like they have to talk the whole time, and they're constantly.
The whole thing is exposition.
Yeah. Remember that thing that happened yesterday? Well, this is the thing we're doing now, and then tomorrow we're going to do that thing. But in the meantime, let's go to Kelly's bar and have a drink, and then we'll. Yeah. It's General Hospital for me. Like this is all like.
Oh yeah.
The Luke and Laura stuff. I could watch for hours on YouTube.
And so I'm oddly like you have to be a really good actor to be able to at all.
Anne
sell
Heche
that.
is in this movie, by the way. I forgot to mention, and she's also from soap operas.
Yes, indeed. And so I remember noticing, like, wow, this kid is really super good. But yeah, Susan Lucci, and I was going to mention who else was on that show. Give me a second.
Judith Light
also, but anyway, that was a big, so she's coming, Sarah Michelle Gellar is in this movie. I think she's just left All My Children when she makes this. But it was like a big, big part of television culture were the soap operas. And there was like a good half dozen of them. And as we said, they ran on every network, every single weekday afternoon. Every single one. And they were wildly popular. And I don't know how they did it. I really don't understand how they managed to churn those things out for as many decades. Yeah. Decades. Yeah. So anyway, and then we have, as you said, Ryan, is it Ryan Philippe? Do we pronounce the
Philippe
E?
or Philippe? I never quite know. He was becoming a big star. He was married to Reese Witherspoon. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. is
the son of Freddie
Prinze, who, if you don't know that,
don't be discouraged.
R.I.P. He was just a baby when his father passed away, and he had his father's name. I mean, can you imagine the pressure of that? Like, because his father was a comedian and very, very famous. Like, he was on the Tonight Show. He had his own
He was
sitcom.
very, very famous. Yeah, and also like such a role model. I mean, this was a time when the only Latino that anybody had ever seen on television was Ricky Ricardo, and that already was groundbreaking. But I mean, that's a long time between that and Chico and the Man when you had Freddie Prinze. So it was a lot. It was a lot that he was holding up for people. So I imagine it must have been a lot of pressure. And after this, Ryan Philippe and Sarah Michelle Gellar and Reese Witherspoon make
Cruel Intentions.
Thank you. The Dangerous Liaisons remake.
Which we should do sometime.
We should. We talked about that play and the Glenn Close one. But we did not talk. We only briefly mentioned Cruel Intentions. Anyway, so these were mega stars of the 90s. And this was kind of the Scream, and this was really a launch pad for a lot of these young people. Although not Sarah Michelle. What's her name? Jennifer Love. Well, it's the three names. Everybody has three names. Jennifer Love Hewitt had been on television with Party of Five. Like, this is her first, as Margos said, it's like her first real big breakout role in a big movie. Yeah. So those are our stars. We've got these four, again, the two couples, the whole character of Colleen, Collie, Buddy, whatever. Not at all. Does not figure into this whatsoever.
No, and when they're partying in the van, and Ryan Philippe is playing. Sorry, Max is that? No. Max is Johnny Galecki, right?
He's Barry.
Barry is the and he looks just like a Barry, like the football star.
He does.
Yeah, he just looks like he could.
Yeah, he's the rich. He's got a Beamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's drunk, and so they make him sit in the back seat, and Ray is the more responsible one. That's Freddie Prinze Jr., so he's driving, but then he's going through the sunroof, and he's making acting the fool, and that's when they crunch over something.
I don't know.
Is everybody okay?
Oh, that was an animal.
God, you're bleeding!
It's not mine. It must have been a dog or something. My car! Can't you see where you're going? Look, it came out of nowhere. I didn't see it.
Dog couldn't have done that.
Yo, look, deer could. Look, you dropped your bottle. I was just trying to... My dad's gonna freak on my ass.
It's an accident. Leave him alone. Where is it? If it was a deer, then where is it?
Look, maybe it ran off.
I hope so. I hope we didn't kill it.
Let's go.
Oh, my God.
No way.
Oh, my God. But I thought...
I didn't see it. No, there's no way.
Oh, my God, this isn't happening.
Check that side. Yeah. Come on. Help us. Look, I swear!
Is he dead?
I don't know. Check his pulse. No way! You're the one who rammed him!
Just do it!
And that immediately, and anybody who drives, and especially if you drive at night, you have that fear.
Oh, yes.
There's been close calls in my life. You know, I used to drive up to Santa Cruz a lot, and it was so they have that, and anybody would be completely in that fear. And then you don't know if it's a kid or not. It's a big body. It's not a little kid. Which is the big difference, I think.
It is a big difference, and which is I'm fine with. It's that's okay. And but before the very first shot, I think, is of a young man sitting on the edge of a cliff, looking out at the ocean, and he's wearing like fisherman, what do you call the coveralls, the slicker pant thing, and boots,
the waders.
And
what do they call that? My parents used to do that when they went fishing. Yeah.
And he's got a piece of woman's jewelry, not a locket, but a charm of some kind with initials on it. And he's like spinning it and looking forlornly out to sea. So that we've seen him and we don't know what that's about. And then we see the teenagers and they're partying on the beach. And again, Sarah Michelle Gellar's the beauty queen. She's just been crowned Miss Crab Shack or whatever it is. We meet Max, who is this poor kid, you know, who works in the fisherman, you know, the fishing industry there. And he has a crush on Jennifer Love Hewitt, but she's already dating Freddie Prinze. And so we have this whole dynamic of these teenagers. Then we've got the two couples on the beach and they're goofing around and they get in the car and Barry's drunk. He's out the moonroof. He drops his beer or bottle of whatever he's drinking into Freddie Prince's lap. And Freddie Prinze looks away, although he's being very responsible. He looks away from the road down into his lap for a second. And that's when it happens. That awful thud. It's so bad. And it's grisly.
Yeah, and it's very visceral, and you can totally, like I said, it's shot really well. This movie looks great.
It's extremely well shot.
Yeah, because a lot of these horror movies are not shot well. They don't have the budget, they don't have the locations, they don't have the whatever. Like this is when you have that, you know, it can elevate material, which it does here as much as it can. I mean, at some point the material is the material, but they decide they're kind of like, what do we do? How do we handle this? At one point they're going to drag the body away.
We're gonna fry no matter who takes the fall. Then we leave right now.
No way, are you crazy?
The grill's busted. There's blood everywhere. We can clean it up. Come on.
Listen to yourselves. No, we are going to the police.
We don't have, you understand? We gotta move fast. Hey, now let's try to stay calm. Focus.
Don't you get it? If there's some of him on the car, there's some of the car on him. They're gonna trace it back to you. You're looking at a hit and run.
Then we dump the body.
You've lost it.
But just pretend we were never here.
We could drag him to the water and dump him in. They wouldn't find the police. By that time, all the evidence would be washed away. You found him at all? The currents are strong. The undertow could carry him out to sea.
I won't be any part of it.
Look, I'm scared, Julie. Look, I'm not like the rest of you. I don't have the family or the money to get me out of this. Please. This is your future, Julie. Think about it. College, your scholarship. The guy's already dead. If we go to the police, we're dead too.
And that's when Max shows up, and then they're pretending that this guy is just vomiting off the side of the road.
He's drunk, that he's like, because they have him kind of laying over halfway over the barrier, the roadside barrier. So, you have these two couples. They've hit this body. They make Freddie Prinze Jr. They go check the pulse. Like, I don't know that I would count on myself to check somebody's pulse and tell anything. Like, I can't even find my own pulse. You know?
See if he's breathing. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
And so, but you know, I get it. You're a teenager, and so he panics and he says, I think he's dead. And Felipe goes immediately to, well, we just have to hide the body and get on with our life.
Because, I've got college, you've got college, we're all going to get in trouble with our parents. Like,
how is that the solution?
Right. That's immediately what he's thinking of. So they take the body away and they're at the dock. And then their idea is, let's just throw him in the water and eventually they'll find out who it is. And then
we don't actually know he's dead.
No. And
we
then
have zero confirmation that he's actually dead.
Right.
At this point.
And we don't know how old this person is. I mean, it's not a child though. But then he says, well, we should get the ID. Someone says we need to get the ID so we at least know who this is. They're trying to get the ID and then the body comes to life, or and then it grabs. Sarah Michelle Gellar is wearing her crown, her beauty crown. So he grabs her crown and then he falls into the water. And then she's like, he's got my crown, y'all. We got to get that back. So Ryan Felipe dives in to get her crown. So then you have this body, and then the body kind of comes back to life again. And then he crawls back on the boat. And then
it's very scary.
It is. It's legitimately like creepy. And they. So, yeah.
But they also, like, not only do they do, like I said, they go Ryan Felipe, especially, he goes right to, we got to dump this body. He's dead. We've got to dump, like, they have zero confirmation of this. None whatsoever that this person is actually dead. Immediately, we agree that we're going to, he convinces them, I don't know why, that the smart thing to do is toss this body in the water for some reason. And then once they're about to do that, they're arguing whether to find out who this is. If they had just checked the guy's wallet, then guess what? You immediately know who's writing you those notes, don't you? But oh no.
They're creeped out about getting into the body, but then she says she's going to do it. But as soon as she does, he grabs her crown. So
right.
I'm like, he's not really dead. So, but let's just throw him in the water, keep him in the water and not tell anybody.
But obviously he's not dead. Maybe now we could call an ambulance. Oh no.
They're Kennedys. They're just like leaving.
What?
Yes, they're just going. So that's their solution, is to just take off. And then they completely swear to one another. Ryan Felipe is very aggro about it. Like, we can't say anything. We're all going to agree. We're going to go on, do our separate things.
Over here. Let's get out of here. We're going home now. And never, ever, under any circumstances known to God, speak about this again. Is that clear? It is now merely a future therapy bill, agreed? Ellie!
I'll never mention it again.
We make a pact. Right here and now we take this to our grave. Agreed. Julie? We take this to our grave! Let me hear it! Let it go, Barry!
Okay, Barry, we take this to the grave.
It'll be okay.
Then we get Jennifer Love Hewitt 1 year later, and she's in college, and they try to ug her up by like saying how pale she is and stuff, but she's still gorgeous. She looks great, but she's
not wearing mascara. Ooh.
No, but she's wearing overalls. Like, you've just let yourself go to I know, exactly. Like, she looks great and everything. My point. But she comes home and her mom's like, I'm worried about you. You seem distracted. Your grades are, and she's like, I know, Mom. I'm going to call up some of my friends and that'll cheer me up. So she goes to look for Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I think an improvement is she tried New York and she got kind of chewed up and spat out. So she comes back home to North Carolina with her tail between her legs, trying to figure out what to do. She's working at some retail store with her sister, and her sister lords it over her like, yeah, you thought
Her
you were big
sister's
shit.
horrible.
Her sister's a B word. I mean, she's not supportive. And I get maybe Sarah Michelle Gellar was obnoxious. And so this is her like, see, you're not so great, right? You got to work with me at the store, like everybody else here. But that's what she's doing. She did win Miss Crab Cakes or whatever it was the year before. So she has that going for her. Freddie Prinze is working at the dock with the other guys.
Okay. So when they all get together, so she gets the note and similar to the book, she gets the note. She kind of calls a confab with the whole murder team. They go to get Freddie Prinze Jr. and Freddie Prinze Jr. is working with Max as a fisherman. And Brian Felipe says, Barry, who's just rich, he doesn't have to work. He doesn't have to go to college. He doesn't have to do anything. And so he doesn't. And so he says something like, well, Ray grew up to be a fisherman. Grew up. It's been a year, dude.
He's 19, if that.
He could still go to college.
Yes.
How do you know he's not saving up to go to college? How do you, dude, grew up.
Barry's terrible.
He's terrible.
He's not a good friend. But yeah, he's ragging on him about that. There's Jennifer Love Hewitt. They don't have the dating thing where she's dating a guy. It's more just that they just go right to the mystery, which is like they're all getting these threatening notes and images. And then this person that's killing people has a hook. This is not in the story. And that's
not in the book. We're out of bookland now.
Out of bookland. So there's an old legend, like people say in horror movies, about the guy with the hook in his hand and the people drove home and then they came home. They saw the hook was in the window or it was hanging from the this or the that. That's just an old thing. So this is a guy in a slicker thing and with a hook.
Yeah. So at first they think that they rightfully think, well, it must be Max because Max. Now we know when Max drove by the night of the murder, when he drives up on the scene, he's kind of drunk.
Yeah.
And they, I mean, I know they got their hands full with the whole murder thing, but they fully let him drive away drunk. And that's fine. So they think, oh, well, it must be Max because Max, he was drunk, but maybe he put two and two together and now he's getting revenge on all of us for not including him in our reindeer games. And so Barry, why do they here's my question. Over and over again, they agree to let Barry handle things. When I think
he's terrible.
We established really early on he cannot handle things. Like he can't even handle when at the very beginning when Sarah Michelle Gellar, they're at the pageant and Max is trying to talk to Jennifer Love Hewitt and he comes in as just a total, just the worst guy ever. Max was merely talking to his friend. But this is the guy we're going to follow and put in charge of all of the major decision making that has to do with the rest of our lives. Okay. So Barry, they think, well, it must be Max. And Barry's like, great, let me handle it. he goes and violently threatens this man's life. Violently,
with a hook.
Assaults him.
Yeah, with the hook. I'm going to kill you, dude, if you don't leave us alone. And he's like, what are you talking about?
First of all, you jump to the conclusion that the guy is dead who's not actually dead. You jump to the conclusion that we should just throw him into the water. That's going to solve everything. And now you're jumping to the conclusion that it's not only are you jumping to the conclusion that it's Max that's threatening you, you're also jumping to the conclusion that what I need to do is violently assault this guy and threaten him.
His temper and his temperament is what gets him in trouble all the time.
Every time.
He's the cause of all this. If you're going to blame someone, it's him. He deserves what
Barry's fault.
All Barry's fault. So then Max is first killed. Right?
So Max is like, what was that about? Like, what are you talking about? But he's just scared because, this guy's attacking him. And then he abruptly leaves. And before he can even kind of recover and put anything together, like what has happened, this figure walks in in, like Margot said, like the full on, like a fisherman's outfit. So nobody would stop such a person from walking into unlike Barry, who just goes wherever he wants, I guess. But this fisherman in the full slicker, full like protective fishing boat gear walks up to Johnny Galecki and no more Max. And so now we're like, whoa, well, clearly we, the audience, know it's not Max. And one thing I like about the screenplay, there's a lot I don't like about the screenplay, but one thing I liked about the screenplay was that how long it takes for the rest of the teenagers to know that Max has been killed, because they don't know right away. And I think that kind of works out well, because for a good chunk there, we, the audience, know it's not Max. And we know that there is actually somebody who is very dangerous, who is after these people, is perfectly willing to kill an innocent bystander.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why he kills Max.
Because Max can find something out. I don't know. I mean, Julie goes...
It's not clear.
Yeah, it's unclear. Julie goes to the library to find out what was the name of the person they actually killed. And his name was David, and that he has a family, and that they miss him. And he has a sister named Missy, who was just completely... Of course, she was completely upset when her little brother dies. Yeah.
You would be.
But she's getting more... But then we find out that Sarah Michelle Gellar is home. You know, her sister's, of course, being like, you have to work tomorrow. We got to do whatever she was, inventory. And she's like, nah, I got to do the pageant tomorrow. And then they have this confrontation. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar wakes up and like her hair is falling off her head. But it's like a bob. I mean, does she wear a wig after that?
It is a much more attractive bob.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it looks great. Like that.
The slasher guy has some hidden talent.
Right, Edward Scissorhands.
Amazing with the scissors. So she wakes up. It's scary. She wakes up and she's wearing her crown in bed, and she's like, "What's my crown doing here?" And then her hair is everywhere.
And she calls Jennifer Love Hewitt, who picks up the phone and then immediately runs to the car and then goes to her house. As soon as for some reason, she opens up the trunk of her car.
She hears something rolling around in the trunk.
And she gets out of the car.
Which is also another ominous thud. The thuds in this movie.
The thudding is great. And then so she opens up the trunk, and that's where she sees Max, and he's full of crabs, and he's dead, and he's in her trunk. So she's like, ah! So, and the truck goes by. That's something important, because this truck goes by, just honks at her and leaves. So then she goes and gets Jennifer Love Hewitt, and then she's like, we got to get Barry. Okay, we got Barry's over with Sarah Michelle Gellar, because she lost some of her hair, and then she puts a cap over it, and then they go back to the car.
Yes, nobody can see her amazing bob.
I know. I'm like, what is it? But and she has the sweatshirt wrapped around her waist. Like, it's very 97.
So 90s.
But there for maybe 5 minutes it takes her to go to the room, talk to them, and then they come back.
Okay, if that.
And the car is now empty. There are no crabs.
And
there's
clean.
nobody, and no clean. There's no sand. It doesn't smell. Nope. But that's when Jennifer Love Hewitt spins around and says, What are you waiting for? Let's do this. Yeah. And it's hilarious. I mean, like I said, it looks great, but it's hilarious.
It does.
It's like, what if you did come running out of the woods right now? What would you do? I mean, seriously, you have no weapons.
Spinning around.
Your head's sick from spinning around. Like, what are you going to do if somebody comes after you in this moment? But they realize that there's so that's when Barry is saying, I'll hang out with you. I'll stay with you. She has to go to the parade, and she's going to do the show. She goes, I'll just watch you to make sure nothing happens to you. So he's on the float when she does the parade. And I do love it when they do the Girl Sings Fame. The themed fame of the beauty pageant is great.
It's very funny. It's very good. No, but before that, we forgot about Anne Heche.
Oh, so they met Anne Heche. R.I.P.
Okay.
Somebody... So talented.
Really good.
She was so
really good
in a nothing part, a small part, and she's memorable. And she's great
in this movie with all of these characters, and we're supposed to be in North Carolina. It is Anne Heche, and only Anne Heche, who has a North Carolina accent. She's the only one. She's the only one doing the accent, and I'm like, Anne Heche.
She's cleaning fish. She just looks like she belongs where she is. It never it never
Great.
occurs that she's so good. But she's saying, no, my brother was killed and he died by suicide.
Yes. That he drowned. She says that he drowned.
He drowned himself.
And you're like, drowned. And because they threw the body in the water and they're like, okay, well, And she also mentions, she's a little kooky. She also mentions that a high school friend of the brothers has been by, was very cute and then abruptly left. And that the guy's name is Billy Blue. And they're like, okay, well, we got to find this friend and see, like, maybe it's the friend that's after us. And
right.
Maybe it's the sister that's after us. And who knows, because we do see her cleaning fish with the hook kind of thing. And like, she's a little off kilter. Understandably, like her whole family blew up.
Yeah, but then it also it's good for the movie to have like a different person that could possibly be the killer. Like, and it's interesting that it's an Anne Heche, a very slight woman, like but who just seems a little wacky. But you're like, yeah, I could see it. Yeah, yeah.
Who gets attacked next? Barry gets attacked next. Barry gets attacked during the pageant, as you're saying, when the girl is singing "Fame,"
which is a really cool scene.
It is awesome. I love the way that whole thing is done.
What's the problem?
Help him! He's gonna kill him!
Who? Who's killing who?
Up in the balcony!
All right, everybody stay calm.
Get off of me!
People just move back in your seats. Everything's under control here. Y'all move back in your seats now, please. Thank you. Everybody move back.
Ma'am, stay behind me, okay?
They've got this pageant that they've got to do. They know that with the crowd and everything, that they're all in danger. They're all vulnerable. Barry's like, I got you. Let me handle it. Barry's in charge, because everything always goes awesome when Barry's in charge. He's like, yeah, I'm on it. Barry's on the job. Never fear. And Barry's like up in the balcony watching the pageant, keeping eyes on absolutely everything but himself. P.S. Now Barry's dead.
Yeah, Sarah Michelle Gellar is on stage and everyone's watching her. She can see him up in the balcony and then sees there's some stuff going on up there and she's screaming like, you got to help Barry. And they think she's having some kind of breakdown doing with her hair or whatever. But she's trying to go up there and they're trying to stop her. And then by the time they do get up there, the body's gone. Nobody's up there. So then they think, she's a total wacko. Like the cop is driving her home and they're trying to explain to her, like, what's going on here? And she's, and then the cop gets killed, right?
Yes, the police officer is escorting her home. She's in the back of the squad car. They come upon somebody whose car has broken down, and the police officer stops and gets out, and she sees that it's the killer that is luring the police officer. The killer immediately kills the cop because, again, this is our screenwriter, the screen guy, and it's just very these slashing is happening very quickly and abruptly and out of nowhere. Like before you even have a moment to be like, oh, that's the guy. It's over. Like it's already happened. And so she realizes, and now she's like, it's a great sequence. Like she's kicking her way out of the car. She's running to her store where, her sister's doing inventory and she's banging on the door and the sister lets her in and it's obnoxious as ever. Like the sister's never not obnoxious. And this killer comes in, immediately kills the sister. and is chasing her through this department store with the creepy mannequins, and it's great. It's a really good, horror movie. It's a classic.
It's a classic. She leaves. I think it's like an MTV award thing. Like it has to be, because this scene where Sarah Michelle Gellar gets out of the store, he's like one of the mannequins, and then he's chasing her, and then she gets away from him. She gets out of there, and then she's running up the alley. At the same time, there's a parade going on. So as the parade route is going on, this is very Hitchcockian, by the way. Like you have the thing going on
your
there.
night parades.
Right, your night parades.
They're so loud.
With the full band. You're right. But that is like very like what Hitchcock does in a couple of his films. And so she gets murdered in an alleyway while that's happening over there, and nobody can hear it. So they don't know that she's dead yet. But now we have Jennifer Love Hewitt and we have Freddie Prinze Jr. Jennifer Love Hewitt, I'm sorry. So she finds.
So she's doing research on the internet. She's very smart and knows how to use the internet. And in her internet research, she figures out that she also goes back to see, because she's got the yearbook. She's got the yearbook from the year that the murder victim was killed, and so she wants to know who is this friend. And so she goes back to Anne Heche with the yearbook to find out who this supposed friend of her brother was. And Anne Heche says, my brother was not murdered. In fact, we have a note. I have a note. I'll show you the note. It's not going to, it's not like they're going to get me for insurance fraud. I hid it because I didn't want I wanted to be able to collect on his insurance. I needed the money. Yeah. And so she shows Jennifer Love Hewitt the note, and it's in the same handwriting as I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I forget what it says, but it's something that could be a suicide note, but it also could be a death threat. Right. And it is the death threat. Somehow Anne Heche, again, doesn't know her own brother's handwriting that she's so close to. Okay.
Well, it's in block letters.
I know what my sister's handwriting looks like, even if she's writing in block letters. I wouldn't be like, what's odd about this note is she suddenly wrote in block letters, all in block letters. Wow. She must have really been upset. So Jennifer Love Hewitt puts it together that the guy they hit, because she also had mentioned the tattoo
Susie.
of the girlfriend, because he was so despondent over the death of his girlfriend, they were in a car accident and he survived. And she says, I know, I saw him. He had a tattoo. And she's like, my brother did not have a tattoo of his girlfriend's name or otherwise. He just did not. And so Jennifer Love Hewitt puts it all together like, oh, her brother's not the one that we hit that night. And whoever it was that we hit is the one who's after us. And so she goes to the internet and does her research on, I don't know, Nexus, Lexus, or whatever.
I know. After upsetting Anne Heche, by the way, like she just like leaves her,
just like re-traumatizing her. She's like, bye. So she figures out, she puts it together that who must be after them is the father of the girlfriend, this guy who they this whole time have thought has been the victim. That the father had killed that guy first. And then they had hit him as he was leaving that scene of that crime. And so this is all a murder a murder that ended up covering up another murder, basically. But now she knows who it is. And so she goes to Ray to get help because the guy's a fisherman. The father of the girl is a fisherman. And so when she goes to Ray for help, she sees that the name of his boat is Billy Blue. How she does not know that before this point.
Until that moment, she had no idea the name of his boat. But this is when she finds out, and then she thinks, oh my God, you're the killer. So then she's trying to get away from him, and then she sees a man on the dock, and she's like, Mister, call the cops. I need help. He goes, get on my boat right now and hide. So she does.
She's like, okay.
Doesn't run to town, doesn't just, no.
Too bad Barry's not here to tell me what to do.
Exactly. She gets on the boat, and then he's chasing her around the boat. And
it's very scary. She goes down because it's a fishing boat. She goes down into
it's scary with the ice.
And all the bodies are down in there in the very fake looking ice.
But it's it's creepy. Like
it's very creepy and scary.
But she gets away. Ray comes back and helps save her, and then they tell the cops everything that happened. You know, the two of them are like, in the book, the whole thing, Ray is like, well, I'm glad we're together now because I realize I love you so much and we need to be together. I'm like, this is not the takeaway.
Not the time,
not the time or the takeaway of this, you know. But this guy is like, well, at least we didn't kill anybody, right? She's like, yeah, you're right. So she goes in the movie, and this is like very cheesy, but she goes back to college. It's still very effectively done. Like she's gonna go into the shower, and her friend says, "Oh, you got a note by by the locker room," and she opens the note, and it's just her sorority inviting her to a pool party. She's like, "Oh, yay!" And then she goes back into the shower, and then it's full of steam. She sees a sign that says, "I still know," and then somebody jumps out, and then that's how they end it. Credits, because they're going to get their sequel, and they made a lot of money with this.
So. What happened? Because again, I'd never seen this movie or read this book. What happens in the sequel? There's 2 sequels.
There is, and I would have to watch them to tell you.
The same guy, because they pulled the guy. Didn't they pull the guy out of the water?
So I'm going to say this: she's going to wake up. The movie starts. I don't know. I have not seen it. My guess is that they open it and she wakes up and it was a dream sequence, and she thought that this guy. But
Let me see. I'm looking.
Okay, because
I gotta know.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make a lick of sense because everyone should be dead. You know, the only person I could think of is Anne Heche because you just re-traumatized me over my dead sibling.
It's still the guy. It's still the guy, the girl's dad.
Muse Watson is his name. He's Ben Willis / the fisherman.
So he's still in the sequel. Spoiler alert!
Oh, right, because they didn't find his body. That's right.
Oh, that's right. They
fell
only
in
found
the water.
Hand.
They only found his hand, and they were like,
that guy
"Well,
could, like just breathe underwater or something." I don't know what all.
It's Aquaman,
I guess.
But yeah, that's right. They don't find his body, so that's our first hint.
That's right.
Because they're like, "Well, it'll show up one day." Like, oh, thanks.
Okay,
I'll sleep really well until then. I'll go to college
Thanks,
now.
Officer.
Thanks. So yeah, that's when. So a year
couldn't
later,
possibly look in the water. I appreciate that.
I mean, right? How deep is that water? I don't know, but it's good. I mean, look, it's cheesy. But I swear to God, if you're looking for a scary movie and you got laundry to fold or you're dusting or putting up your decorations, it's a fun one to have on.
Oh yeah, I think so too. And I, as you say, like the production value is
excellent,
impressive, and the jump scares and all of that, the way that's all done is very effective. Really, what do I want to say? It's like a step beyond Nightmare on Elm Street, like the way that you and I, like the kind of jump scares that were in from that era. It is a kind of another level of suspense in that, and certainly gore. I think it
could be gorier. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, especially compared to like Scream and what happens later. But I did find, because it's very late in and it's again nothing to do with the book at all. I wish we had the murderer insinuating them into the lives of these people, but they don't. He's just this guy that they don't know anything about till Jennifer Love Hewitt goes to the internet. When that happens, to me, like that all happens kind of fast, almost like a little too fast to follow it. I had to go back and like watch her. I kind of had to like go, okay, this guy's who again? And so did he murders the guy, the original guy that we thought was the victim? Like he's actually the victim of a murder by this guy instead. I didn't quite, it didn't quite connect for me as effectively as I feel like if I'd been just seeing it in a movie theater, I would have been like, wait, huh? It's this guy now? Wait, what? What happened to the first guy? I would have been a little confused. But a lot of, but it's very entertaining. These kids are very good.
Oh yeah, it's very believable. The soundtrack is kind of cool. Like there's some 70s songs, but they put like a 90s edge to it. Grunge edge to it, like Summer Breeze and Hush Hush. I mean, it was just, I think it's fine. It's great. And honestly, book versus movie, I would actually go for the movie.
I mean, I do, like I said, I do like
and
that
I do like Lois Duncan.
Yeah, and I do like that angle of the book about like that they're all interacting with the murderer without realizing it. I think is really cool. So it's a different approach to what happens to these 4 kids after they hit somebody with a car. But I'm not mad at it. I like that it's not a child.
Yes.
Appreciate that. And I also, in the end, I'm also like, oh, not only is it not a child, but it was an evil murderer that they hit with the car. And now I don't know.
Then I don't feel so bad about it.
Upset about that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I do have to give an edge to the movie with this one as well. Yeah, I think for a young person to read this book, it's a good book for a, like you said, like a 11.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
You just want to be scared a little bit. You don't want to be up on, like I was, but reading my Stephen King books when I was that age. Like,
no, it's not that.
No. But it's, it's fine. And it's like this time of year, you're looking for scary movies. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Yes. And it's a whole 90s vibe, which is fun too.
Yeah.
Yep. And then watch Scary Movie and laugh and laugh and
laugh and laugh.
That was so brilliant to think of doing that. I just think it's so funny. Next week is the last week of October, and we have something kind of big planned.
We're going to cover Stephen King's Misery, and we have a special guest, but we'll wait till next week. You have to check out because
yes, I've never read Misery before. I was just telling you before we got on the air. I must be like a third of the way through, and it's super good. Like Stephen King is. He's such a great writer, and he's a writer's writer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like scary books, as you know, and I really don't like violent slasher books, but Stephen King is such a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to go along because I have seen this movie. It's a little bit interfering with I always try to read the book first and then watch the movie. But once in a while we have a movie that is just again, like this movie, a cultural phenomenon, and you kind of can't get it out of your mind while you're reading the book. And I'm trying to not picture James Caan and Kathy Bates, but I can't not picture James Caan and Kathy Bates. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish I hadn't seen this movie yet. I feel like I would enjoy being immersed in the book a little bit more. But it's so far I'm really enjoying it. It's of course it's great. He's great.
So that's our next episode. We're super excited about that. Once again, reach out to us with your ideas for books and movies. All those places I mentioned at the top of the show. Once again, our email is bookversusmoviepodcast, spelled it all out, @gmail.com. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at Brooklyn Margot for Blue Sky, Twitter. I'm at Brooklyn Fitchick for Threads and Instagram. My site is Brooklyn Fitchick. And also on TikTok, I'm at Brooklyn Margot. And I put a few clips there of this movie that we talked about this week on there. So go check that out. All right, everybody. Spooky season continues soon with Misery. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags LadyPodSquad and Podern Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon and look for Book versus Movie Podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs Movie Podcast group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book versus Movie. Spell all those words out. If you'd like to send us an email, it's bookversusmoviepodcast, spelled it all out, @gmail.com. You can follow Margot D at Brooklyn Fitchick on social media and Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thanks so much again for checking out our show, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.